Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, May 6th, 2008 edition of the Investigative Journal. I'm your host, Greg Szymanski, and I'll be here for the next 2 hours, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday, live on LibertyRadioLive.com. That's LibertyRadioLive.com. And today I got a lot planned for you. It's going to be a fun day, really. Anytime Slats Grobnick, my old friend, true patriot, Slats Grobnick contacts me, it's a fun day. And we'll get to an article that I wrote about what he told me. And it's a great conversation, so we'll get to that in a minute. And first, though, let's talk about some things. First of all, Skull and Bones is one of the entry points into the Illuminati. Okay. Now, the Vatican is the Illuminati is the Vatican. Secondly, Freemasonry is another entry point into the Illuminati. At the high levels, the 32nd, 33-degree Masons all have a secret agenda that isn't told to the lower-level initiates. The high-level initiates know it. The lower-level don't. And apparently, there's a book called Morals and Dogma that Albert Pike wrote that is only given to these high members. And when they leave the order, or when they leave Freemasonry, they're supposed to return it. And it talks about the secrets that they don't want you or me, who they call the goyim or cattle, to know about. That's right. And so anybody who claims to be a 32 or 33-degree Mason should have this book. And remember this, anyone who's working for high-level Freemasonry, whether they say it's good or bad, is controlled by who? The Jesuit order, the greatest foe of Protestant religious and civil liberty known to man. And to be a part of the Illuminati and the Jesuits makes it impossible to love the U.S. Constitution. However, they're like chameleons. Don't trust them. And you don't know who's who sometimes. And they'll tell you they're basically fighting against them when they actually are working for them. And that's the way they operate. Because remember the Jesuits, who basically took over for the Knights Templars, go by this motto: the end justifies the means. And we've talked about that at length on this show. So basically, no president or public official in America could ever be a part of these groups and say he's a president of the United States. So we've discussed this in the past. Are you aware that your leaders, George Bush and George H. Bush, are also bonesmen from Skull and Bones? And George Bush is also a descendant of the 13 top Illuminati families, the family that ties with Britain's loyalty and the Merovingians. Yeah, George Bush the father and George Bush the son have both attended Yale and both joined Skull and Bones. So we know what they're all about. Now let me go over what they do. Now we talked yesterday about Walter Veith and his Hidden Agenda CD, which we will finish the last 40 minutes today. But we talked much about the secrets behind Freemasonry, how the Jesuits founded it, how they use it as the Protestant arm of the Catholic Church and use it to basically wield power for the papacy. So that's where we're at when we talk about that. But when we talk about Skull and Bones, we talked earlier about their initiation too. And the initiation is very simple. The initiate lies in a coffin. He then gets out of the coffin, and three figures present themselves, one being Ignatius Loyola. Ignatius Loyola, which is represented as Don Quixote. He was a fictional character written back in the 1500s. Then the second one is Hiram Abiff, the high leader of Freemasonry. And the third is the Black Pope, the Pope. Now the Black Pope is represented by Ignatius Loyola or Don Quixote. So then the Pope taps the initiate, George Bush, or his father, whoever's in Skull and Bones, 3 times, declares him a Knight of Eulogia, which means a Knight of the Eucharist, and their allegiance lies to the Pope. That's why the Pope's visited here 5 times and is ready to take over this country. Bush bows to his master. We talked 3 things that were very evident when he came, when the Pope came. Bush went to the tarmac to bow to his master, when usually foreign heads of state are met at the White House. Secondly, you see a Marine Guard holding the Vatican flag, which is illegal and against the law. Third, Bush and his wife bowed down to the Pope. And you saw that. And fourth, when Bush was asked, what do you see when you look in his eyes, he said, God. Now he says he's a Christian. How can any man say that? So anyway, we know what Bush is all about. That's just a little bit of a review. So let's get back into, we're always trying to figure out who's on what side on this show. And it's always it's fun in a way because you never really know. And you try to do it and you try to figure it out. But I'm pretty sure that I was talking to Slats Grobnick today. And you know who Slats Grobnick is if you read my website. He's this true patriot that about 3 years ago was sitting in the Chicago bar having a beer. And he decided to go on a Don Quixote. He knew who Don Quixote was. He knew that Don Quixote was Ignatius Loyola. And so he started saying, I'm going on this Don Quixote truth tour to tell the Jesuits where to stick it. And I'm going to let them know that I know who Don Quixote is, and I'm just going to stick it right to him and tell him the truth any possible way I can. And he was sitting there at the bar and saying a few bad things about George Bush, and all of a sudden was pulled out of there. Yes, he was pulled out by Homeland Security, and he spent about 2 months in a Denver gulag. And what went on there was just unspeakable. And you got to go to my website at www.arcticbeacon.com to read about what happened to Slats. Well, he gets out. You think he's going to quit? Heck no. He's on a lifetime crusade to expose the Jesuit order. So Slats is now, since I think I'm going back east. So he starts heading back east, and he ends up in a Kansas cornfield. Meets this farmer, and this farmer happens to be a true blue patriot because the farmer was mad that these guys were taking all the farmers' land. And all of his friends and all the farms there were gone, and all these corporations have it. And this farmer was pretty well ticked off. Well, Slats and him got together over a couple beers, and they started talking about the real truth behind this. And believe it or not, the farmer understood it. 1 in a million in this country. So Slats said, "Will you help me do something?" And the farmer said, "What?" He said, "Will you help me build a replica of the Roman Colosseum in your cornfield?" And he says, "What?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I really want to stick it to these guys. And what I want to do is I want to do what they do. They got all these occult symbols and everything around this country, and I want to show them that we're going to put them right back where they belong, and that's back in the Colosseum. And instead of this time, them sitting up there enjoying themselves while all the good innocent people are being killed down in the Colosseum and all these slaves they brought in to give them enjoyment, what we do is we build it, and then when we find the truth, the people telling the truth, we bring them in there and let them just kill themselves. Because, heck, I don't want to hurt them. But you know what? They deserve to at least be put on display. And so Slats came up with this idea to start this kind of like reality sporting event in the old Roman Colosseum. So the idea was then to, sell tickets, 100,000 seats, sell some tickets, give it back to the farmers so they could buy back their land from the Jesuits who took it in the first place. So then you would have these gladiator teams like the Jesuit team, you would have the Bush team, you would have the media team that sold out for the Jesuits, you would have all these guys, putting on a show because they love reality television so much, and they love using that as propaganda. So I said, why not? Let's put them back where they belong, in the Roman Colosseum that they built, and that they revere so much. And so Slats got about halfway through that. Yeah. Got about halfway through building the Colosseum, and, some snitch, it wasn't the farmer, told Homeland Security, and Slats was labeled as a terrorist, and luckily the day the farmer was gone, Slats was hiding in an underground bunker that he built there that nobody knows where it's at. And Homeland Security came with their black helicopters, wanted to take him away. He luckily escaped, but they destroyed the damn thing. Yeah, they blew it right up. So he had to start all over again. And the farmer came back and is now suing Homeland Security, and that's an interesting lawsuit that's going on. So the farmer sues Homeland Security. Slats is hiding away. They've kind of laid off him because they figure he can't rebuild it, and Slats is there rebuilding. So he's about halfway done. But during that time that he was deciding whether to rebuild it or not, he decides to get together with some people in this little Kansas town who knew how to do this bugging. They were really advanced in how these bugging devices were done by Homeland Security. So they were sitting having a drink and said, Slats, why don't we turn it around on them? Let's bug these guys. Why don't we go and place bugs in the White House, place bugs in the – can you get it in the Black Pope's residence at Borgo Santo Spirito Cinque in Rome? And luckily enough, God works in strange ways. They connect with somebody who got it in there. They got it into the White House. They got it into some of the catacombs in the Vatican. They got it into God knows how many people, and started to tape record what they were really trying to do. Play the old game on them. And the point is, if they can pass these laws to bypass our Constitution because of basic terrorism and stating that we can rip apart the First, Second, Third, Fourth Amendment and then just surveil every American in the country, Slats said, well, I think these guys are the real terrorists, and we have to surveil them. So he went on this thing, and I think he wrote – I had an article back about when he bugged the Black Pope and the real conversations going on, and then he was trying to get one of them in the secret room that they have behind the White House, which has been quite difficult, but not yet impossible. And he's working on Nancy Pelosi and all these people, and these – play the old game back at them because they're the terrorists, and they need to be surveilled. So anyway – during that time, it ticked off the head guy, the head Jesuit at that time. And so they gave him an ultimatum. They said, listen, if you cease and desist from all this kind of activity, we will pay you 500,000 euros. And you can just go on your merry way and just shut up. Well, Slats, that was the last I wrote about him. And he disappeared. And I really thought he took the money and just left. But I called him yesterday, and he called me, and he said, this is from my secret phone, and don't worry, they probably will bug you, but they can't find me. So I said, well, what the hell, did you take the money and run? And he said, no. What I was thinking about, I'll tell you what, when you get that kind of money put in front of you, you never know what you're going to do, but I couldn't do it. And especially then I heard about this guy, Leo Zagami, that you had on your show all this year, and I followed that story, and I didn't quite believe it, he says to me. But he said, Greg, I trusted you a little bit. But then when he came over here lying, I had to say, hell, I'm not taking the money. I'm going to go track this guy down. So Slats is on his way trying to figure out how to bug his phones, just like they do to us, and find out the truth about him. And I don't know where he's at today. But yesterday he called me, and let me read the article I wrote about it because I wanted everybody to hear what he had to say. So on my website at arcticbeacon.com, I say this: True patriot Slats Grobnick comes to the rescue, calling Zagami a lying black robe Italian stallion. What a joke this Leo the Lion is, said Slats. How could you fall for his lies, Greg? Well, Slats Grobnick had a big belly laugh when he heard Leo Zagami finally showed his true Vatican colors after recently arriving in America for his bogus Freedom of Hope tour. Slats, as you may recall, is a true patriot fighting the Vatican-led New World Order tooth and nail, while Zagami, changing like a chameleon with every passing season, has exposed himself as a true Vatican agent, working inside and out of high-level Freemasonry, of course controlled by the Sons of Lucifer, and better known as the good old Jesuit order. Now, Slats recently called the Arctic Beacon and had this to say about Illuminati agent Zagami, or as he calls him, the lying black Italian stallion. What a joke this guy is, said Slats. How could you fall for his lies, Greg? Well, in the beginning, said Greg, he provided what appeared to be some truthful inside Illuminati information from the Monte Carlo P2 Lodge, a high-up lodge, saying he was an ex-high-level 33-degree Freemason who defected. And then he pulled the switch on you, didn't he, Greg? Yeah, right, Slats, he sure did. I read about it, Greg. Right before he comes to America, said Slats, for his bogus Freedom of Hope tour, he switches from being a devout bogus Muslim to being a devout bogus Christian. He then switches from being an ex-Illuminati to being the Grand Master of the European, head of the European Lodge and head of the American Illuminati. Greg, he's a Luciferian, plain and simple. Get it? Well, not really, Slats. Well, let me tell you how they operate, and drive it into your silly head, Greg. Oh, wait a minute, Slats. How do you know all this stuff? Greg, while you were listening to his, let me say it kindly, listening to his bullshit for the last year on all your radio shows, I was doing some background checking and talking to some people in Rome who knew the real Leo the liar, and he isn't the nice Illuminati truth-telling defector he claims to be. Okay, Slats. You got my attention. Now tell me more. All right, Greg, I found out from people in Norway and Rome he still hangs out with the Jesuits and their contacts. He was always a Luciferian propaganda tool for them, going back to his satanic music days. A guy in Rome called me the other day and said Zagami has never changed and is working underground, taking on a different role, so to speak. Well, for what? Well, Greg, he was assigned to infiltrate the last remaining enemies of the Luciferian Jesuits here in the States. People such as yourself, Eric Phelps, and others who follow your work. By getting on the inside for over a year, he chose you first, Greg, as you are rather naive and gullible. Now wait a second, Slats. Well, just shut up, Greg, for a minute, and I'll explain. By the way, he said he was a 33-degree Mason, didn't he, Greg? Yeah. Did you ever ask him for a secret book, Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, the one only given to high-level initiates of the 32nd and 33 degree? No. Jesus, I didn't remember that. Greg, see how stupid you really are? Did you ever read the book? Well, I have. I've read it, Greg. And if Zagami cannot present an exact copy of Pike's Secrets, then he's a fraud, because nobody is supposed to read it but the high-level initiates. You see, there is one thesis given to the chosen Lucifer worshippers like Zagami, and another given to the low-level Masons, or what they call the cattle or goyim like you and me. Oh, too cool, Slats. Too cool. But how sick is this? Well, Greg, it's very sick. But I think it's also very brilliant, since nobody in America knows anything about anything concerning Jesuit Hegelian strategy. First, added Slats, let me give you some history. And I noticed this guy on your show yesterday was talking the same way. Now, let me tell you. Let me give you some history, and let me say it plain and simple. Now, I'm not going to tell it like a scholar like Weiss said it yesterday, but I'm going to tell it to you plain and simple. The Jesuits took over where the evil and occult Templars left off. The Templars, of course, being the original Pope's army as well as the Pope's bankers. The Jesuits are steeped in the occult and Lucifer worshipping, and the Zagami, I assure you, is still one of their boys. So the Jesuits take over as the new knights when they are formed in 1543 or 1541, whatever, and begin to destroy the Protestant Reformation. And while doing this, Greg, now listen to me. You always got to listen a little better. They create and control Freemasonry as basically the Protestant arm of the papacy. And why would the Jesuits need to make a Protestant order? Now, this is going to get a little heavy, but hopefully you can follow me. The Bible has revealed that Rome is the Antichrist, and everybody is looking at them through a magnifying glass. So if the persecution does not work, join them. Yeah. Now, Freemasonry is doing the dirty work for the Jesuits, Zagami included. Whether he says he's good or bad, it doesn't matter. And the Jesuits do the work for Rome. The sad thing is that some Freemasons really think that they are working for true good, the true God of heaven, and doing good, and find out, when they receive higher degrees, that it's Lucifer worship. Well, look at some other researchers' work in the Jesuit connection, Greg, if you don't believe me. And I did this, and I don't like to. I'm busy building this Colosseum. And I'm not in the mood to sit in the library all the time, but this is what I found out. It's curious to note that most of the bodies which work these, such as the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, the Rite of Avignon, the Order of Temple, Fessler's Rite, the Grand Council of Emperors of the East and West Sovereign Prince Masons, etc., are nearly all offsprings of the sons of Ignatius Loyola. The Baron Hunt, Chevalier Ramsey, Zindendorf, and numerous others who founded the grades in these rites worked under instructions from generals of the Jesuits. Now, you can find this in ISIS, Unveiled by H.B. Blavatsky, L.A., California, The Theosophy Company, 1968. Isn't that pretty good? You thought I was just, one of these guys running around spreading my own opinions. Well, anyway, there are still old ladies, male, female, about the country who will tell you with grim gravity that if you trace up Freemasonry through all of its orders till you come to the grand tip-top head mason of the world, you will discover that the dread individual and chief of the Society of Jesus are one and the same person. And that was by James Parton, an American historian, written in 1885. Now, you getting the picture a little, Greg? Finally? But, Slats, how does the Zagami fit into this picture? I'll get to that. Just listen. Although on the outside, Freemasonry claims to be a Christian organization, in any country where that is the main religion. Now, for example, if they're in a Muslim country, they'll have a Quran on their altar. If they're in a Christian country, they'll have it, just like Vaith was telling you yesterday, on the altar. But it's anything but a Christian to high-level initiates of the 32nd and 33rd degree. For these enlightened or chosen ones, Pike and the Jesuit Luciferian secrets are finally revealed. So he knows, Zagami knows this if he's a 33-degree Mason. This can be easily seen if you know what you're looking in many occult symbols used by the Vatican, Jesuits, and Freemasonry. They always operate using Jesuit statements and oaths from the Hegelian principle, which is rather brilliant if you think about it. Well, and I listened to Vaith Slats. Well, what's this Hegelian principle? Tell me. Statements in this oath come from Hegelian principle used by the Jesuits. The Hegelian principle was formulated by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, German philosopher. It is a process intended to produce oneness of mind through a process of thesis, embodying particular view or position, antithesis, providing an opposing or contrary position, and 3, synthesis, which reconciles the 2 previous positions and then becomes the basis of a new thesis, in accordance with the laws of dialectical materialism. You can find that, Greg, in Webster's 7th New Collegiate Dictionary. In theory, though, a continual process of evolution, oneness of mind is achieved, oneness of world order, oneness of world religion, what have you. Can you start seeing the picture? Yeah. This process can also be used to, 1, create crisis, opposition to crisis, affect the wanted solution, and because of these oaths, ceremonies, and principles, the Jesuits have been kicked out of more than 81 countries, and I hope Zagami and the Jesuits are kicked out of America soon. And always remember this, Greg. The synthesis the Jesuits want to achieve is a one-world fascist government and a one-world Luciferian religion, because for them, the ends always justifies the means. But man, Slats, those are big words. Can you make it a little easier for somebody like me? All right, I'll try. The Jesuits, Greg, always control both sides. They control both the left and the right in politics, both sides of religious debate, and both sides of all the wars that have ever transpired. And that's why the American election is nothing but a joke. And why all the wars have been orchestrated. This is true because the Jesuits rub people together. They don't care how many die, according to Hegelian principles, in order to achieve the synthesis they want to achieve, and that synthesis is the New World Order. Now let me explain this little rat Zagami's brilliant New World Order Jesuit scheme. Can you do it quick, Slats? Because he's only a little fish in this Luciferian pond. Yes, but just goes to show you how they don't like to control everything and everybody, even with little truth tellers like yourself, Greg. Now tell me, Slats, quickly. My dinner's cooking. All right, the pasta's cooking. Now tell me. All right, I'll make it fast and clear so you can eat. Zagami first says he's an ex-Illuminati and converted Muslim, defecting from Freemasonry and his Catholic roots to get on the inside of real Vatican resistance in the States. Then, right before he comes to America for his bogus 2-month tour of hope, he becomes Christian and says he's now the Grand Master of European Illuminati as well as the Grand Master of U.S. Illuminati. However, he qualifies it by saying he represents the good side of Illuminati. See how brilliantly deceptive this is? No, I don't, Slats. Greg, how dumb can you be? There's no good side of the Illuminati, and all their organizations, including Rosicrucians and the like, are evil as well. You see, Zagami says he's good when it's all controlled by the Jesuits for their final synthesis, destroy Vatican opposition by advancing their New World Order goal. So what does Zagami have to gain? Said Greg, by his statement that he's the new good Grand Master of Freemasonry. Greg, sometimes I really think I have to hold your hand and teach you everything. Can't you just follow things sometimes? Now, go ahead, Slats. Go ahead. I want to eat. Listen, by teaming up with Zagami. Listen, people. By teaming up with Zagami, now you are affiliating yourself with what? Freemasonry and the Illuminati. This is exactly what they want, because in the future, the Vatican will say that they have been infiltrated by the Illuminati and Freemasonry, which they already openly denounce on the outside and support on the inside. the beauty of this strategy is that Zagami leads the final Vatican resistance here in the States down the exact road they want. You see, in 2009, Greg, the blockbuster Ron Hanks and Ron Howard movie Angels and Demons is coming out. The Jesuit propaganda movie will tell Americans the Vatican is fighting the evil Illuminati and Freemasonry who are trying to destroy the Mother Church. The people, Greg, will believe that. And this will put anyone associated with Zagami on the crazy evil side, since they now claim to be following a Masonic Illuminati Grand Master. Good and bad will get lost in the shuffle, as the Vatican will even claim that there is no good side of the Illuminati and Freemasonry. By controlling both sides, in the end, they win. And in the end, Zagami was one of their boys playing a small part to advance the Vatican-led New World Order. So what do you think now, Greg? Pretty brilliant? Well, Slats, pretty sick and slick. That's what it really is. But, let's eat our pasta, Slats, before this Hegelian principle, all these Jesuit ideas, ruin my appetite. Well, folks, and there you have it. That's the latest from Slats Grobnick, and I hope, and it's pretty good. I kind of agree with him. I was wondering, what he thought about this. And, he comes to the rescue and pulls apart this Vatican Jesuit theory, but if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Now, why wouldn't he just, like Zagami, I told him when he was on my show, he came on as a guest because I didn't want to have him on. Why wouldn't he just come here as an ex-Illuminati? Well, because then his words may have credence. And he could fight both the Illuminati and the Vatican, which is not what they want. They want him to play the fall guy. And then anybody who follows him is going to get caught up in the shuffle. And the Vatican, of course, has Ron Howard and all these big rich guys to protect him and say, hey, look, that guy said he's the Illuminati. So did this guy. So did this guy. They're all evil. And the people will believe it. So don't associate with this guy. It's a bunch of nonsense. And I'll say it honestly. If he'd have remained just as an ex-Illuminati, like you said, and I don't care whether he was Muslim, Jewish, or Christian, and he just brought up information and wanted to be honest without all this deceit, I'd have no problem with him. But as Slats told us, you got to watch out for these guys because they're slick and sick. And I can see it right now. I can see it all over. More. Oh, and he's going to be on some Stanley Monteith show on GCN. That makes sense. And that'll be interesting. And he can confuse some more people. But you're not going to come on this show and confuse anybody because, I think throughout the year that I brought him on, we see now how they operate. But don't be afraid to say the truth when it happens to present itself. And don't be afraid to get caught up in their lies because they're pretty slick. And, that's another lesson in how to figure out who's who. And I got an email from Revolution Jim. And let me see what he said this last minute. Okay. I know you've reported in the past, Greg, about Leonard Horowitz being a knight of John's Hospitality. Yeah, he's one of them. Horowitz was on Dave and Joyce's Power Hour a while back talking about his Kabbalistic mysticism beliefs. Well, it goes right hand in hand. I told you this guy Horowitz is one of them. Leonard Horowitz, yes. And so he didn't like it when I said that, but he refused to come on my show and talk about it. So, yes, he's a member of the Knights of Malta St. John's Hospitaller Order in Russia. He tried to say that wasn't a Knight of Malta or a Knight, and it isn't. They're all basically the same. And that was proven. John Phelps did a little research on that and other people. So, yeah, they're all over the place. You just got to try to figure out who they are and get on the right side. And don't let them take you into this on the wrong path. I'm going to be back in 3 minutes.